Robert Picardo.
Hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm a big fan of yours, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
I appreciate it. And I want to say sometime that I'm a relatively new Twitter guy, so
okay.
I want to make sure to mention, or you to mention, to follow me at Robert Picardo, so I will get a few extra followers out of our encounter today.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to tweet that to the entire world if I can. So let's talk about China Beach a little bit. Congratulations on the show finally being released on DVD.
Thank you. It was a long wait, and there were many bleak moments when I thought it would never happen.
I'm sure it is. It has been a really long wait, but it has also been one of the most requested shows on DVD. So, is it gratifying to find out that the fans really still love the show 25 years on from when it premiered?
It is gratifying, but I had a hint because after China Beach, I did one of the Star Trek series, so I do a certain number of Star Trek appearances, and I've always been gratified at them how many questions I get about China Beach and how people will come up and say, "Oh, I love Star Trek Voyager, but I also love you on China Beach." So I've been asked this question.
Right.
When will it come out? I've given the pro forma answer, which is when China Beach was made, they never anticipated selling a television series, so they never negotiated the music rights for all that great 60s music that was part of our soundtrack and integral to the show. They never pre-negotiated that. They never had any expectation. And because of that, it not only was not on DVD, it literally couldn't be shown for the last, I don't know, probably a dozen years. It had exhausted all of its rights.
Right.
And until they came up with a new deal, it was not viewable anywhere. It wasn't on Netflix. It wasn't being rerun on Lifetime anymore, the History Channel as it once was. So I feared that it would never be seen again.
Right.
And thank goodness for Time Life investing the $1 million, hiring the lawyers, clearing, I think the number is 268 songs.
Wow.
Including, Baby I Need Your Loving by the Four Tops, My Girl by The Temptation, The Brown-Eyed Girl by Van Morrison, who was my favorite guy, guy of all time.
Right.
But Janis Joplin, Aretha Franklin, Sonny and Cher, all that great music that was so important, rather than just swap it out with crap, which they could have done years ago, they said, no, we want it to be right. And they put out a really beautiful set with 10 hours of new bonus features and DVD liner notes written by me and Dana Delaney.
Oh, cool.
Executive producer. So they really came to us and said, we want to make it special. I gave them my home movies.
Wow.
My behind-the-scenes footage, because I had my first child during season 2 of China Beach, so everybody runs out and buys a video camera.
Right.
So I had a video camera that I took around and shot the last night we were at Indian Dunes, which is the location in Santa Clarita where we had the helicopter pad and the outdoor sets to China Beach. I went around and sort of interviewed people informally, and they took my home video and used that. They took home video made by our exec producer, and so this is stuff that no one has seen and no one could have seen before this moment.
Right. That's great. Well, I know when we announced the release on the site, people were more than happy to hear it, and we got a lot of really positive comments about it coming out.
I want to mention it's also available through robertpicardo.com, my website.
Okay.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Robert Picardo. So I am trying. I have joined the social networking generation. I tweet several times a day. Even if I have nothing to tweet about, I will create a tweet out of thin air.
Right.
That's how good I am.
All right. A lot of the cast went on to great television success. Yourself, obviously, Dana Delaney, Mark Helgenberger, Michael Boatman. What was your guys? What was the camaraderie like on set? Were you guys a close-knit cast?
Oh, yes, absolutely. First of all, making China Beach, I would never want to compare it with the dangers of fighting a real war, but there was a feeling on China Beach that we were fighting a different kind of war. We were at a difficult location. The temperature would vary as much as 55, 60 degrees in a day. We would be outside shooting in cotton, a cotton T-shirt when it was 22 degrees sometime,
right?
Because it was 2 or 3 in the morning.
Right.
We were slow dance with Dana on the helipad at the end of one episode, and it was 22 degrees.
Oh, boy.
Now, during the day, it could, if this is like February, we're in the high desert, it could be 75 or 80 during the day, and then 12 hours later, when we were still working, it was in the 20s.
Right.
So there was that.
Right.
It was, we had to drive a lot to get there. This was before they had big, comfortable trailers for actors. Dana, I'm sure, for the star of our show, she was in probably the least comfortable, circumstances when she wasn't on camera of any actress in a major television show, but never with complaint. I mean, nobody complained on China Beach. That was great. Everybody was so happy to be working on something of that quality and that kind of importance that nobody ever bitched about anything, as I recall. So that was a nice thing too. And we were all, we all really got along. Michael Boatman, who I think that was his first major show, he was 23 or 24 years old, was brilliant. I mean, to play a guy who had seen it all, who had just had such a terrible existential weight, dealing with nothing but death.
Right.
To create that kind of a character out of I don't know where, because he was this fun, cheerful, funny, excited, enthusiastic kid from Chicago who just, the moment the camera rolled, he had the soul of an 80-year-old man.
Right.
It was just amazing. So yeah, it was a great company of actors, and we all had this, shared the feeling that we were working on something important and worthwhile.
Well, that was one of my other questions was, you guys were one of the first shows to deal with the Vietnam War on a weekly basis. Was that something you guys were sort of conscious of portraying in the right light, or was it more of, is that not something that you kind of had in the front of your minds as you were filming?
I think it really came, it was a feeling that came from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
Our co-creator, Bill Broyles, had served in Vietnam in the Marines. He'd led his own platoon. John Young, who had lost his closest cousin to the Vietnam War, he had adapted Rumor of War, which is one of the great memoirs of the Vietnam War. John had adapted it into a very popular television movie. So those guys really wanted to get it right, and I think they communicated that gravity and that responsibility to the cast. One of the ways they did it was that they had a lot of contact with vets who had served there, and they invited the vets to come and meet the cast. And we had these Veterans Days, I think, a couple of times before season 1, before season 2, and they would come in and tell their stories, and many of their stories were fodder for future scripts, were turned into stories, and then eventually we blurred the line even further by putting the vets themselves on camera, reminiscing, in direct address to the camera. They reminisced about their experiences, and then we intercut it with scenes from our show that were similar or inspired by their experiences. So there was a real sense from our producers that we have this responsibility to tell these stories with a certain accuracy and emotional truth, and we want to guarantee that. And they communicated that very successfully to us actors. They took the time to do it. We were given the extra take because it was a performance-driven show, and we took the time. That's why the hours were long.
Right.
We took the time to get it right. And Warner Brothers, I'm sure, lost a lot of money the first season until we got those hours under control. I remember shooting one day 24 hours. Well, when you shoot 24 hours, you lose a day.
Right,
so
sure.
We literally had to finish an episode. If we didn't get this day's work, we would not have had a show to air. So we worked, it was a Tuesday. If the actors worked 24 hours, then the crew worked like 26 or 7. So we had to cancel Wednesday. Wednesday was canceled. We came back on Thursday. But there was I remember the only show was a T-shirt where we were given, which said, "I survived China Beach." Or, "I survived the 24-hour." I remember when the show ended, I gave everybody a night shirt that said, "Let me sleep. I just survived China Beach."
Well, it sounds like it was an amazing experience. And speaking of amazing experiences, my readers would boycott if I didn't ask you at least one question about Star Trek. So
I expect it, and I demand it.
All right, good. So I'll keep it general then, because I don't have all day. What was the whole experience like for you? What's your favorite part of being a part of Star Trek?
Well, I guess with the distance of time, my favorite part about Star Trek is that science fiction fans are the most loyal fans in the world of any genre, and once they like your Star Trek character, they kind of develop an affection for you that extends for the rest of your life.
Right.
So even though I finished shooting Star Trek in the beginning of 2001, I still get to travel the world. I'm going to Wales in 2 days.
Cool.
To a science fiction convention. Next month I go to Italy and Prague.
Wow.
I still get to travel the world to meet the science fiction fan, primarily Star Trek, but also I was on our competition, Stargate.
Right.
So I'm a man with no loyalty. But it's basically how it changes your life. You have a dedicated group of people that are interested in you and are willing to come and see you and hear you for the rest of your life. So that is it from a personal perspective.
Sure.
Within the role itself, what I didn't realize at the time I got it because I was too ignorant about Star Trek, and to realize that I had gotten the plum role, the outsider character.
Right.
I assumed that would be the Vulcan. I assumed that would be Tim Russ. I didn't know that I had gotten this great part, and that my only fear was I knew that Brent Spiner had been enormously popular as an android, and I felt a certain responsibility to be as different from him as I could be. But the other side of the coin, of course, is that you hoped that the audience would embrace your character the way they had his. So I didn't realize that I had gotten such a great role, and I had arguably the best arc of any character in 7 years.
Sure.
Of any of the actors. And most of my castmates had told me that if they could have played any part, they would have played mine, because it had the best journey of anyone. Probably second in line would be 7 of 9, and only because she had a great journey too, but wasn't on the full 7 years. So
right.
I was lucky to have that role. It was great fun to play a character that could break all the rules of Star Trek. I didn't have to act courageous. I could be self-involved and smug and arrogant and do all these things because I wasn't real.
Right.
I was an imperfectly working piece of technology. So.
Right. Quick question. I know we're wrapping up. You mentioned Stargate, also a great show. Any future for Atlantis? There was sort of some talks, and then it kind of died down. Do we know anything?
Unfortunately, the fate of Star Trek is so tied up with the fate of MGM television. I think that it's sad that the entire Stargate franchise is languishing. It's a great and valuable property, and hopefully whoever's running MGM now will go, we have to do something with this brand name.
Right.
But I don't know of any. We were supposed to make a television movie that was in pre-production, supposedly on IMDb, for quite a while, and then the reality of MGM not really having the funds to make new television kicked in. So I can't say what'll happen. I just know it's too valuable a brand name to let languish forever. Look at how Star Trek is back and stronger than ever, making so much money for CBS Paramount.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
So hopefully someone will wise up at MGM and say this is worth putting some money here, and we will see. We will hear from. And whether or not any of us will play those characters again, that I can't say.
Right.
I just hope that Stargate, rides again.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, well, I know we are out of time, Robert, but thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll be sure to spread the word about all of your Twitter and your website and everything. So
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, and continued success to you.
Thank you, same to you.
Take care.